Hello, all you happy people. Welcome to Stick to Shorts. I'm your host, JD Hansel, and this is a show about old cartoons. What do I mean by old cartoons? Animated TV shows? No. Animated web videos? No. Animated feature films? Heck no. For shame, Doc. On this show, we talk about classical, theatrical, animated shorts. These are the animated films produced for movie theaters during the classical Hollywood period that ran before the feature films. That makes this technically a movie review podcast. So if you know what movie review podcasts are like, this is that. All that's different about this show is that these movies will only take you about 7 minutes to watch, and they tend to feature talking rabbits. From where I stand, that's a win-win. Something I forgot to talk about in the introductory episode, even though it's pretty important, is how we're going to go through these cartoons in an order that makes sense. Frankly, I don't think there's a great way to put these in order, but I've got a plan. This first season is really one big pilot episode of sorts as I figure out how to approach this podcast. And it's also one big introduction to classic cartoons. It's like a sort of panorama. It's a sort of bananarama of the classic animation landscape, showing you a few of the major studios and major directors that we'll be talking about in the future. If the show is well received, or if I feel like just keeping it because I want to, regardless of how it's received, then we get to do a second season, and that second season will be a little bit more chronological, guiding you through some animation history. If you want to follow along with the show, you can see what we'll be covering next on our Blue Sky and Facebook pages at Stick to Shorts. Keep in mind that some of these cartoons contain material that is disturbing, upsetting, or downright wrong. Please check the episode description and our episode guides on social media for a content warning. This week's cartoon does actually go to a surprisingly dark and difficult place, I think, so it may not have been a good idea on my part to cover it so early. Maybe I should have eased you in a little bit more, but I wanted to make sure this first season includes a few of the most famous cartoon shorts, so you've likely already seen some of these and are partly caught up from the get-go. In the last episode, I introduced you to Warner Brothers cartoons with a focus on Bob Clampett and Tex Avery. But you may have noticed that I gave the third member of their Looney Tunes triumvirate a little less attention. I am, of course, talking about Chuck Jones, who is almost certainly the most famous of the three, at least among English speakers. The French love Tex Avery. But Chuck Jones is fascinating because while he shared Avery and Clampett's ambition to shake things up at the Schlesinger studio, it seems to me that he didn't initially feel as strong of a need to get away from the Disney style. In fact, he was clearly interested in learning from it quite a bit. While I won't be doing a historical deep dive like last time, I probably won't cover that much history in a single episode in that great detail for quite a while. I think this episode will give you some sense of what makes Chuck such a big part of the classic cartoons conversation. The particular cartoon I'm using to shine the spotlight on Chuck Jones this week is one of the most celebrated cartoons ever made, and one of my favorites, One Froggy Evening. If you want to know where to find this cartoon and where to watch all the cartoons we'll be covering on this show, again, check our social media pages, and I'll have its DVD and Blu-ray releases listed, at least for Region 1. This one's popular enough and included enough on DVDs that if you don't already have it on hand, odds are you can find it at your local library. Speaking of the library, I think it's time for me to introduce my librarian friend. Joining me for this really necessary trip through Toontown is my friend and fellow writer at toughpigs.com, Anthony Strand. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, JD. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. I've been meaning to just talk with you about cartoons for a long time, for like half a year, and I'm so glad that we're finally doing this.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited.
You almost definitely know this stuff much better than I do, because you were getting really into it when I was born, is my understanding.
That is true. We were just talking before recording about how I bought the book 50 Greatest Cartoons on eBay. I definitely in middle school. I think maybe 8th grade. So you were maybe 2.
Yeah.
But
that sounds about right.
I've definitely owned it since the late 90s. And that was formative for me. It was like one of my first scholarly pursuits.
Okay.
You know, really.
What do you mean by that? Tell me about your history with classic cartoons.
I mean, I grew up watching them on TV. Like, maybe the difference between you and me is that I'm old enough that when I was little, like Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry and Disney cartoons even were on TV all the time. Like,
really?
Yes, in the early 90s.
Okay.
this might blow your mind, but there was a time, and you can check my sources here, Nickelodeon ran Looney Tunes in the afternoon.
Right.
Which was a lot of like Bosco and Honey and stuff, but also like some other... I mean, there were
So
like Bosco
weird.
and Honey cartoons on Nickelodeon in the 90s. TBS and TNT both had Looney Tune blocks right before Cartoon Network.
Okay.
Premiere. I think that's kind of why Cartoon Network came about, was that they were running, like Ted Turner was running Looney Tunes blocks on TBS and TNT.
Right.
And then ABC still had its Saturday morning, the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show, which was an hour of Looney Tunes on ABC on Saturday morning.
Anthony, this sounds like heaven.
It was.
See, this is the trouble. I have found that pretty much everything that I find interesting about pop culture came to a grinding halt precisely when I was born.
Right. I know. And of course,
it's-
weren't you born in 96, the year of Space Jam?
I was.
Yeah, so there you go. That was the end.
Yeah. I caused it. Maybe somehow cosmically I ruined everything.
It's funny though, because like I feel like I was around for the tail end of that, because I think my understanding is there was a lot more just like old cartoons in syndication on like afternoon over the air TV in the 70s and 80s. Like that's when a lot of people older than me saw this stuff.
Yeah, it used to be, I mean, like Walter Lantz stuff was omnipresent.
Right. Yeah, and even that was kind of gone, but all those Looney Tunes blocks, Tom and Jerry was on TBS in those days as its own thing. And then the Disney cartoons would just be like, Wonderful World of Disney was on TV.
Okay.
And if a movie was short, if a movie was like not long enough to fill the time,
Yeah.
they would run a cartoon before it or something. And I feel like that's when I saw a lot of those. And my grandma would tape stuff off the Disney Channel. I didn't get the Disney Channel, but my grandma would get free weekends. And then all of a sudden I have a tape with, in the bag on it or whatever.
Great. Essential Anthony lore here, the tapes from
Yeah.
Grandma.
Yeah. I've talked about that on Movin Right Along, my podcast, which you've been on.
Yeah, which we should mention, that you are the co-host of a podcast called Movin Right Along. Did we say that at the top? Or did
I don't think we did. We said I'm your fellow Tough Pigs writer, which is also accurate.
That this is also accurate. We both write for toughpigs.com, a Muppet fan site. And for that website, you co-host a podcast with our friend Ryan Rowe called Movin Right Along, in which you go through the theatrical Muppet movies 2 minutes per episode.
Yes,
Do you have anything else you want to say about that show?
Well, I mean, I think if people are listening to this show, they would probably like it.
I think so.
I think as long as we're talking about the Muppets, like, to me, the Muppets and Looney Tunes were so of a piece.
Yep.
In terms of forming my sense of humor. Have I ever told you about the 7 M's, JD?
I don't believe you have.
I always say that my sense of humor was formed by 7 things that all start
you've told
with the
me
letter
about
M.
this, but please tell me again.
Yeah, so it's the Muppets, Marx Brothers, Mel Brooks, Monty Python, Mad Magazine, Mystery Science Theater 3000, and Merry Melodies. Because I needed the Looney Tunes to be an M, so it's Merry Melodies. But that's kind of true,
Yeah, it works. And certainly, if you're a fan of Muppets, it, I think, makes you a fan of the Warner Brothers cartoons and vice versa to some degree. I would think for most people, like one kind of prepares you for the other, and either or is going to prepare you to be a Marx Brothers fan, I would think.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's just such an overlap in the sensibilities of all three of those things. And, even like we don't need to talk about this, but I was recently on Muppeturgy podcast talking about
Great show.
I love it. One of my favorites. It's nice of them to let me come on sometimes. We're talking about the Glenda Jackson episode where Eric the Parrot sings Carolina in the Morning. And to me, and I said this on that podcast, that is from Book Review. That is a song performed by Daffy Duck in the film Book Review. That's why it exists. That's why you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I know it wasn't written for that. Almost no songs were written for those characters.
But that's an iconic cartoon.
Right, exactly. So it's like I hear that, and it's like picture Daffy doing his Danny Kaye Russian accent.
Strolling with my girlie where the dew is pearly early in the morning. Butterflies all flutter up and kiss each little buttercup a dawning. If I had Aladdin's lamp for only a day, I'd make a wish, and here's what I'd say. Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina in the morning.
And there are so many things like that. I cannot tell you how influenced my speech patterns are by Daffy Duck. Just in general.
You know what? I get that.
Yeah, and it's specifically, there was a long time where my expression of annoyance, default expression of annoyance was, thanks for the sour persimmons, cousin, from Duck Amuck. Which is
good.
Such a weird joke. Like, I didn't know what persimmons were. I didn't even know that was a fruit when I was little, you know?
You know when I learned that it was a fruit?
Just now?
Just now. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
I don't have Duck Amuck on the schedule anytime soon for this show.
It'd be a big one. It's an ambitious
It's a big one.
subject.
It's been talked about so much already. So much.
Sure.
And so I feel like that's the sort of thing to build up to and spend some time trying to find if there's any new angle or approach, or if I could get
that
a
makes
good guest for that episode. And initially that was going to be the way that I handled this week's cartoon. I was going to put that off to be a special event way down the road, but somehow I landed here just because I needed something that everyone's seen to put up front in the lineup. Speaking of which, this week's trip through Toontown takes us to 1955. The studio is Warner Brothers. The director is Chuck Jones. The cartoon is One Froggy Evening.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. Send me a kiss by wire. Baby, my heart's on fire. If you refuse me, honey, you lose me. Then you'll be left alone. Oh, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your own.
It's the story of a man who discovers a singing, dancing frog that he thinks will make him rich, but whenever he tries to show his discovery to anybody else, the frog appears to be just an ordinary frog. Will anyone ever believe this man? No. The credited animators are Abe Levitow, Richard Thompson, Ken Harris, and Ben Washam, but Washam may have animated most of the cartoon, with Harris doing the frog's dances. The story was written by Michael Maltese, who, by this point, was writing exclusively for Chuck Jones. Film historian Leonard Maltin once said, "All of Chuck Jones' great cartoons were written by Mike Maltese, in collaboration with Chuck. They really had a close and wonderfully fruitful collaboration, and they brought out the best in each other." You know, this is the cartoon that Steven Spielberg called the Citizen Kane of cartoons. It's a canonical peak in cartoon history. That means we can only go downhill after this. Like, this is it. Like, my concern with putting one of the biggest ones up front, you know, What's Opera Doc, Duck Amuck, One Froggy Evening, The Trinity, or anything like that, you know, the Chuck Jones hunting trilogy. Putting anything like that up front does mean that there's the risk that listeners who are casual fans of cartoons will be like, all right, I've heard the ones I know, and I'm done.
Sure. Well, so next week do another Froggy Evening, equally good, equally important.
Another Froggy Evening, the prequel to this cartoon that was produced in the 1990s, completely recontextualizes this. Because I feel like much of the point of this cartoon is that the frog was locked away in the 1890s and just knows the songs that are from that period. Like, you kind of fill in that someone found this frog that could talk or sing or dance or something and was like, oh my gosh, I've got a great vaudeville act. Then taught him all of these songs to perform. And then, of course, the frog never performed for anybody else, and the guy ruined his life, gave up, threw the box into the cornerstone of a building. That seems like it's kind of the premise of this cartoon, at least in part. And no, it turns out before the 1890s, Michigan J. Frog had been to outer space with Marvin the Martian.
That's true.
Fun, right?
It's true. It did happen.
It's part of the history.
I'm sorry to get us off on another Froggy Evening right now.
It's fine. We should address it, because here's what's so interesting about this cartoon. It has a life way beyond its point. Whatever its point is, whatever it's trying to convey about frustration or cycles or fate or whatever people have said it's about. To a large degree, people just remember this frog jumps out and sings "Hello, My Baby," and it's fun, and everybody loves the Michigan Rag. That's what we remember, is fun singing frog. Right. And so what you would remember much better than I do, I have the faintest of memories of this from early childhood, but you would remember the network, the WB.
Of course. Oh, yeah.
And he was the icon of the network.
especially I can't stress enough, especially in the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Because the WB ended up being the network of Buffy and Charmed and One Tree Hill and Gilmore Girls, you know? And by that point, they kind of don't have any use for Michigan J. Frog.
Sure.
But in the early years, it's a lot of sitcoms. It's the Wayans Brothers. It's Unhappily Ever After. Kirk starring Kirk Cameron. Brotherly Love starring the Lawrence brothers. And Sister Sister. At that time, it is these ads where all of the stars of various WB shows are like hanging out on the Warner Brothers lot.
Yep, and all at night. It's all like
at night,
the dead of night with all these big neon lights on.
Just like looking into the camera. And meanwhile, Michigan J. Frog is just like there and being like, "You don't want to miss it, mister. It's an all new sister, or whatever."
Yep.
You know? And that's weird.
And then he tells you to eat McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah, he would do the sponsors too, yeah.
He would sing the sponsors. He was all... So they have sort of an origin story for that to a degree where like you see Chuck Jones draw Michigan J. Frog.
Yeah.
He leaps out of the drawing. There's one video in which he hops on Chuck Jones' shoulder and Chuck turns to him and says, "What's up, Frog?"
Yeah, that sounds right.
Dear Lord.
That sounds right. Well, and I think that was just... This network doesn't know what it is yet. You know,
Yes.
It's the WB, and we know that WB is at the start of Looney Tunes. You know, like, I really think that's what it is. And so who's going to be the mascot? Bugs Bunny? No. Daffy Duck? Definitely not. You don't want him as your Porky Pig. That's all, folks. No, you don't want Porky Pig saying that your network is going to die immediately and end, right? Like that's what
It's
Porky
true
Pig
that
would
Porky
suggest.
brings the end.
So it can't be the Tasmanian Devil tearing down the place. So
But-
you end up with Michigan J. Frog,
Okay,
who's
but-
just a mascot in his own cartoon.
But here's the thing. In his own cartoon, he's not a mascot. He's the worst thing that ever happened to a man.
That's true.
That's the point of Michigan J. Frog, is
That's
what he
true.
brings is being incarcerated in a psych hospital.
That is true.
He
It
brings
happens.
he brings homelessness. He brings depression. He brings all of the worst things. And they've got him out here going, WWWWB.
Yeah, you just gotta watch the Wayans Bros.
It's... And, well, the book Reading the Rabbit, it's got a whole essay up top about how in the 90s, when that book was written, these characters had just become... They had this need to be safe, family-friendly, corporate icons, divorced as much as possible from their original history, and the history just kind of had to be pushed away out of sight, anything that wasn't in keeping with the corporate image, and they became more Disneyfied. And to a large extent, I agree, but then also you see the jokes that Michigan J. Frog is making when promoting these sometimes pretty adult shows, and he makes jokes that are right on the line. That are like references to sex, that are like coming about as close as he can to profanity. And you can say the fact that it's all done with a wink wink nudge nudge and is still a little bit restrained and has some element of censorship to it is maybe evidence of, you know, the control of the almighty brand. But in these original cartoons, often the most that they could do in terms of getting past the censors was make a joke saying, "The Hayes office won't let me say this," or you know, something to that effect.
Sure.
So it still feels like this character got edgier in the 90s in some ways, but was just separated from what his film is about completely, from the themes of his film entirely.
Right. That is correct. I mean, I agree. I will say, though, you talk about adult jokes over the line. You mentioned earlier that I might remember those days better than you, but the difference is you probably just watched all this stuff now, right? Like researching for this episode.
Pretty much.
And I saw all of this on the WB when I was 10 and 11 and 12.
This is why I needed you hear it.
And haven't gone back to watch any of that. Like, I haven't sat around watching the Michigan J. Frog intros. So whatever was adult, I didn't even notice.
Right.
You know? First of all, I wasn't watching the adult shows. I was watching Sister Sister and The Parenthood, you know?
Right.
And so I just thought he was just being a Looney Tune.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was just like, oh, they got Looney Tunes on this network. I, a Daffy Duck enthusiast, want to watch, you know? So it worked for me.
And he's singing and performing in front of everyone.
Yeah, well, that is true, yeah.
The curse is lifted. He no longer cares if Tia and Tamara Mowry are seeing him, you know, singing his little song.
That's true. You're right. So I guess that is a big difference, because in his cartoon, one of the things that I love about watching this again for this podcast that I never really thought about is it's not just that he doesn't sing in front of anyone else. It's that when he's with the guy, the human lead, he never stops singing. He is.
It's true.
He is always singing. When they're in the psych ward, he is singing. When they are in the empty theater and the guy is putting up the signs, he is singing nonstop.
Yep.
So there are two modes. You know, there is
Yes.
not, I can only sing when this guy's around. It's, I must sing when this guy is around, and I must not when anyone else is around.
He seems pretty happy, though. Like, he seems pretty happy with the situation, which is the thing that's perhaps hardest to read about this cartoon, is what do we make of... does the frog consent to his role in Fate's game? Does that make sense?
It does, and I mean, I feel like the answer must be yes.
I would think so.
Because, as you say, he's so enthusiastic about singing, you know, won't you come over to my house?
Right.
Like,
So the way that Michael Barrier puts this in his book, Hollywood Cartoons, is the frog will not perform for an audience. If on rare occasions it appears willing to do so, fate, with which the frog is clearly on intimate terms, prevents anyone from seeing it. I think an unusual number of cartoons, from Chuck Jones especially, seem to be interested in fate, in how these characters often have their roles, and no matter what, like, if you're the coyote, you will lose. And he'll talk about how he supposedly had all of these rules in place that he was using to constrain the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons. And then Michael Maltese would be like, if there were any rules, I didn't hear anything about them.
right.
But nevertheless, like, Chuck Jones likes to think that he imposed a lot of disciplines on himself, and that's why his cartoons were good. But Wile E. Coyote can do everything right, and even if he chops off the small end of the mountain, it is the whole mountain that he is standing on that's going to fall beneath him. I may be mixing that up with probably Don't Give Up the Sheep, which is a different character. But still, like, these characters who are supposed to lose are supposed to lose, and the characters who are supposed to win are supposed to win. And fate has chosen all of these things. And when you get to Duck Amuck, it's just, what if, in some sense, at least before Bugs Bunny is revealed, what if God hates Daffy Duck?
Yeah.
That's the cartoon, and that's it. Like,
that is the cartoon, yes.
There's nothing he can actually do about any of this. Daffy hasn't he hasn't done anything wrong in that cartoon. He's trying to do his job. Just do the cartoon.
Well, that's. I mean, I know we're not talking about that cartoon, but that's what I love about that cartoon.
Yep.
Is that Daffy is so, like, eager to roll with the punches, with the changes at the start. You know, he's just like, oh, I'm wearing my ski stuff because now it's a snow cartoon. Oh, it isn't? Okay, I'm playing the ukulele and wearing a lei.
Right. He's not stubborn. He's very flexible and willing to play ball with the director. It's just that the director has decided he should suffer, and that's it. And this is so similar. Like, the fates have decided that this man has to suffer, that this frog is not going to sing when he's supposed to. He's only going to sing when no one can see it. Well,
I do think that that's not limited to Chuck Jones, though. I mean,
you're right.
I would
that
say
it's a feature of just about. Go on.
I mean, well, if we look at Friz Freeling, you know, I think the same thing applies to Sylvester. I think the same thing applies to Yosemite Sam. You know, like you mentioned, Coyote, you know, making chopping off the small part of the mountain and then the whole mountain falls down.
Right.
That same thing happens, and we were just talking about high diving hare. You know,
you're right.
Where Sam tries to saw off the diving board, and then the whole thing collapses.
Now it's possible that everything I just said was wrong, and you just corrected me. But there's another way of looking at it, which is that the Chuck Jones cartoons, I think, because they're grappling with frustration. Mm-hmm. At least that's the word that he always comes back to, frustration.
Well, but I think that's key. You just said that's the word he always comes back to. Chuck Jones spent decades mythologizing himself in his own work.
True.
And Friz Freleng did not. And I think that really is a key difference.
You've got a point. But also, I think that one gets the sense that there is maybe more of a philosophy to when Jones does that, whereas in general, if bad things happen to a character because they're just supposed to happen to that character, then it often feels like, to me, they just kind of needed to get to a punchline and couldn't figure out a way there, so they just did it. And I don't usually feel that quite as strongly with a Chuck Jones cartoon as I might with a Tex Avery cartoon.
Sure.
Like, Tex Avery will just go for the gag. He is not nearly as concerned about the logic of it. And so you look at the end of Bad Luck Blackie.
Yeah, remind me of the end of Bad Luck Blackie.
Sure. So that's the cartoon in which... this is great. I'm so glad we're doing this podcast. Think about what we're getting to talk about right now. And we've
it's great.
Barely cracked open the cartoon itself. This is
true.
This is going terribly, and I'm loving it so much.
Yeah, same.
So a big mean dog is attacking a little kitten, and an unlucky black cat offers his services to the little kitten.
Right.
And says, basically, blow this whistle and I will cross the dog's path, which will make very unlucky things happen to the dog. Well, at the end of the cartoon, spoilers for people who haven't seen it, if you want to see it, I think somebody snuck it onto Max in the Tom and Jerry cartoons. I think I could be wrong, but
Is that right?
Some Tex Avery cat cartoons that are not Tom and Jerry cartoons, because he didn't work on those, have been slipped into the Tom and Jerry section of Max as a gift for us, specifically for me, and to confuse children who are wondering why they're not getting a Tom and Jerry cartoon. But it's good. That one might be there. If not, it's on DVD and Blu-ray on Tex Avery collections, and might be one of the ones that they threw on one of the Looney Tunes Platinum collections. In any case, at the end, the dog swallows the whistle for the unlucky cat, but then every time the dog hiccups, it blows the whistle, and it becomes the blowing of the whistle that brings down like a school bus or whatever on top of him. And that has nothing to do with the mechanism of the bad luck. Like, at that point, the whole logic of the joke has been abandoned just to go as outrageous as possible with the finale and really, go out with a bang. And for me, and I'm saying this about one of the most canonical beloved cartoons here, which I should not be doing so early in the show, that doesn't totally work. I like it, I smile, but it does feel like something's lost, and I don't, in a way that I don't experience as much with the Chuck Jones cartoons. But I've been so predisposed to love the Chuck Jones cartoons, and I'm wondering how much that's a generational thing.
I think every generation who loves Looney Tunes loves Chuck Jones, though. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would think so. But he has become the guy. For such a long time, in part because he lived longer than the others.
Right.
Was...
But I mean, Freleng died in 1995. He just wasn't putting himself out there. I mean, really, Jones was, and obviously they're both in Bugs Bunny Superstar or whatever in 1975. They are both interviewed on camera for that.
Yes, I actually have not gotten around to watching that one yet.
Oh, okay.
But I should.
It's good. But Jones was everywhere.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's entirely a Stan Lee Jack Kirby situation, but it kind of is.
I keep thinking of Stan Lee whenever I think about Chuck Jones' reputation and how he, as you said, mythologized himself. He really did to a great degree.
We think of Chuck Jones as the guy because Chuck Jones promoted himself as the guy. And don't get me wrong, I think Chuck Jones was a genius.
Yeah.
I think his contributions to Looney Tunes are immense and immeasurable. But I think you can say the same thing about Freleng. I think you can say the same thing about Bob Clampett.
Mm-hmm.
Avery is kind of a different situation, of course, because he left Warner Brothers so relatively early.
But I mean, he left after he had played such a huge part in turning them away from what the studio had been through up through the mid-30s into
what it became.
into what it became.
Right,
like,
right.
And kind of shepherded Clampett and shepherded Jones until they could take that even further.
We haven't mentioned Frank Tashlin yet, but
Right,
too,
Tashlin.
you know, and I think it sad but true that like McKimson is lesser. I think he made some great cartoons. I do.
Yeah.
But you watch Freeling's work and you watch Clampett's work and you watch Jones, and I think those feel like contemporaries. Those feel like colleagues working on the same level.
Yes.
You know, but
they all have their things. They all have their
only
skill sets that are so clear, their styles. Like these, there's a reason why it's easy to approach those directors as auteurs, whereas McKimson is also there.
Correct. But I was going to say, of those guys, only one of them plays himself in the movie Gremlins. And I think that's a lot of it.
And that's what made the difference. That really,
I
Gremlins
think it
really
is.
did change everything.
Well, but I think Joe Dante is, of course, a big Looney Tunes guy, the director of Gremlins. We know this. He made Looney Tunes Back in Action. Gremlins 2 literally starts with a Chuck Jones cartoon.
Right, yeah.
You know? But the first Gremlins movie, which one of those guys is he gonna reach out to, and who's gonna appear on camera as himself?
Sure.
It's Jones, because Jones is the front man.
And because he will happily show up and say, "What's up, Frog?" to his shoulder.
Exactly. So, like, I don't know that makes him a more distinctive director than Friz Freleng. I don't.
Well,
Because I think you could look at the Sylvester and Tweety cartoons, and you could look at anything with Yosemite. I think Yosemite Sam is one of the great Looney Tunes creations.
Yeah.
I think he's a vastly more interesting character than Elmer Fudd, for example.
Well, that's true. I mean, the whole point, the genius of Yosemite Sam is finally cracking the problem of how do we replace Elmer Fudd with a more interesting antagonist who can do some of the same things.
And this is a character who exclusively appeared in cartoons directed by Friz Freleng.
Yep.
And we never talk about that. Like, we talk about how Jones directed all the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons, and he had these rules.
Up to a certain point, yeah.
Right, but we don't talk about how, like, Friz Freleng created Bugs Bunny's greatest antagonist, unless maybe Daffy. Maybe Daffy is his greatest antagonist. But of the, like, Bugs versus a person cartoons, you know?
And Friz figuring out to put Sylvester and Tweety together after Sylvester had been used in other things, Tweety had been used in other things, but the marriage of the two was definitely huge.
Yeah.
And I think Friz figured out how to get the Studio Academy Awards, which is not something that Jones could figure out. But for me, that's always the problem with the focus on the Academy, is it just doesn't capture how important the Jones cartoons would be to animation people. You and I have been talking tonight about our appreciation for this book, The 50 Greatest Cartoons, another product of the 90s when all these books were finally being written about all these great works of animation.
Yeah.
1/5 of the cartoons in it were directed by Chuck Jones.
Right. And speaking of that book and Jones in it, we haven't even mentioned the Dover Boys, which I think might actually be his true masterpiece.
Hark! The Dover Boys. Drat them. Double drat them. They are escorting Dora Standpipe. Dear rich Dora Standpipe, how I love her! Father's money.
That's not as beloved as What's Opera Doc or
because
the
it doesn't
Hunting Trilogy.
It doesn't have the characters in it, you know.
But also
neither does One Froggy.
Yeah, right. One Froggy Evening doesn't have a character that's from anything else, and yet that sticks with people. The Dover Boys has pretty distinctive designs, but it's so not about its stars. It's so much more about its style. Like, the star of the Dover Boys is Chuck Jones, to be sure.
Right.
And in a very near second, it's the villain.
Backslide. Yeah. It's funny because we mentioned the 50 Greatest Cartoons, and the Dover Boys are all sitting at a table together on the back. They're standing. They're serenading Dainty Dora Standpipe. And my son Miles picked this book up after I had, pulled it out for this podcast. He's looking at it, and he goes, "Hey, It's those guys. Because
Yep.
he remembered the cartoon, but he sure didn't remember the name the Dover Boys, you know?
Let alone that they're from Pimento University. And
Right.
the rest of that title, I don't even remember, and it's like a top 5 cartoon for me.
The Dover Boys at Pimento University or the Rivals of Roquefort Hall.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here.
I love that cartoon so much.
It's such a good cartoon.
It's so funny.
How old were you when you saw the Dover Boys?
Probably 14, because that I remember reading it in this book, and I don't think I had seen it. Mm-hmm. And then I found it on a public domain DVD. With
right. That's
Daffy
right. It's a
Duck and the
public domain one.
Dinosaur
Perfect.
and some other stuff. Yeah. And I remember I don't remember the name of the DVD release, but I remember that it had like the characters on, it was like Daffy Duck and the Dinosaur, Daffy Duck, the Dover Boys. What's the guy's name from Wacky Races?
Oh, Dick Dastardly?
Dick Dastardly. That's what it said. That's what it had listed for the character. Because it meant Dan Backslide, but it said Dick Dastardly.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the first time I ever saw it, though, was on that DVD. And I watched it 400 million times over the next few years.
I first saw it in college. And it was in an animation history course that is definitely a huge part of why I have ended up doing this podcast, because that introduced me to so much more animation. And it was specifically a class called The Walt Disney Studio in the American Animation Industry. So it basically used Walt Disney and his studio as a through line and branched out into other aspects of the American animation industry and looked at a lot of the Warner Brothers stuff and a few other things. Sure. An incredible course by a really knowledgeable teacher who made us actually read valuable stuff about this and then showed us great cartoons. When I saw the Dover Boys, it was, first of all, a reaction of, oh, it's this one. I've been wanting to see this one forever, because I grew up with a DVD of Chuck Jones' Extremes and In-Betweens, the documentary about Chuck Jones. Again, part of why I am so predisposed to Jones.
Yeah, of course.
As he would want me to be.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
And just, I remember seeing them talking about the smearing. And I'm like, I need to see this cartoon. What is this? And then finally, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing it. And it's not just aesthetically brilliant. It was unbelievably funny. I didn't know that a cartoon I didn't grow up with could get a reaction that big out of me until I was just belly laughing hard.
And speaking of the smearing, my favorite gag in that entire cartoon is when Dan Backslide says that he hates the Dover Boys, and then he adds, "They drive me to drink," and then he runs over to the bar, takes 8 shots, the bartender takes 1, and he takes 5 more. Which is so fast. You know, we talk about the smearing, like it's just boom, 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 1, boom, 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 boom.
And what's weird is Chuck is generally, in many respects, a very patient director.
Right,
Certainly,
yeah, that's not his style, really.
In his earliest cartoons, by gosh, were they slow and boring.
Sniffles the mouse,
the
right?
Sniffles stuff. I just watched a bunch of Sniffles cartoons prepping for this, and they're not without jokes or comedy.
Yeah, they're not bad.
That was very much his imitating Disney phase, working with a character design from a former Disney animator. Jerry Beck said, in this early period of Chuck Jones, he was well known for these cutesy-poo, Disney-like Sniffles cartoons. And I have had the word cutesy-poo in my head, the way Jerry Beck said it, trying to find a way to describe Sniffles, for the past week.
It is true, though. He's not wrong.
It's very true. And then you get the 40s period where he really experiments with speed and pacing in so many interesting ways.
The Dover Boys is 43, right? So I think that's like...
42.
42.
1942.
Okay, so even earlier. So yeah, so that's like... He's really experimenting.
Yeah, but then by the time you get to the 50s, I think he finds his patience. Like, he still has lots of fast movements and fast gags, but they're sort of the staccato moments in an otherwise very patient, careful, measured song. Like, he makes those moments of speed count, whereas everything else, and you really see that in this cartoon, everything's really driven by the poses. He's all about, let's just take some time to appreciate this as art and make these still moments as expressive as possible. Should we talk about what happens in this cartoon?
Yeah.
I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to be way too much to try to talk about in one episode.
What happens in one Froggy Evening?
So we meet a construction worker who's breaking open the cornerstone of a building being demolished, wherein he finds a box with papers from the building's dedication in 1892. Before we even get to the frog, I have thoughts. That's you see, part of why I wanted to do a podcast about shorts is because if you just give me a few minutes, I'll probably have a lot of thoughts and feelings about that and can just have too much to say just about something that's only a few minutes long.
Sure.
Which is why I can't do a podcast about feature films. One of the many reasons why. You've heard me when I've been on your show. You gave me a 2-minute clip, and I gave you an episode that was an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah. We love it. We love it though, so it's okay.
So strangely, the paper we see is stylized as though it's from several centuries ago and feels very European and royal. It
looks like the opening credits to Robin Hood Daffy, another Chuck cartoon.
Yeah.
Or Scarlet Pumpernickel, too.
Yeah, it's got this regal trumpet music accompanying it in Milt Franklin's score. This cartoon has a very strange sense of time and history, where some of the songs in it are from decades after the box was supposedly sealed.
Right.
There are pieces from the 30s, or at least one. But a lot of it's of the period of that turn of the century. This is a highly economical cartoon in that it doesn't waste much. It has no dialogue apart from the song lyric, so it has to make each little pose and movement do a lot of the work to get through a complete story in a short period of time. But given how economical it is, it's surprising that the first several seconds are spent showing us with text on screen that we're at a demolition site, and then Chuck shows us 3 different shots of the building being demolished to make sure we get the idea before we got into anything.
And I love the last one with the white, like the cornerstone falling, where it's like that. I think that looks so cool. I really do. That's
the thing, is like, I can't really complain. Somehow, even when he's doing something that seems like it should be wasteful in the short time that he has to tell this story, I love it all. I'm glad that it's all there. It all works because it's part of just his sense of pacing that is so refined by this point in the mid-50s. So a frog jumps up from inside the box and appears to be an unusually realistically proportioned frog for one of these cartoons. Not your typical anthropomorphic talking animal at all. But then it grabs a top hat and cane and starts singing Hello, My Baby.
He sure does. And he's so excited.
He's so excited to do it. Like, at first he kind of like eyes the guy like, you want to see this? All right, here we go. Yada, da, 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 da. And have you ever looked up the whole original song?
I don't think I have.
You probably don't want to.
It's bad.
It was very much made to be sung by a black man, and a lot of aspects of that have been removed for this performance by Michigan J. Frog.
Sure.
It contains a word that I will not say. But it's very specific to the time period it's from because it's about the telephone.
Right, which is new, yeah.
Hello, I've got a little baby, but she's out of sight. I talked to her across the telephone. I've never seen my honey, but she's mine, all right. So take my kiss and leave the cat alone. Every single morning you'll hear me yell, hey, Central, take me out along the line. He connects me with my honey, then I ring the bell. And this is what I say to baby mine. Hello, my baby, hello, my honey, hello, my ragtime gal. Send me a kiss, I wire. You hear me, baby, my heart's on fire. If you refuse me, honey, you lose me, then you'll left alone. Oh, baby, telephone and tell me I can run. Hello, baby.
And part of that is, again, grounding Michigan J. Frog in that Tin Pan Alley era. But the other effect that it has is it's a song about a guy who's just trying to be heard. And I wonder if making that Michigan J. Frog song is part of why so many people think of this as the song about this sad frog who is just fated to never be listened to. Even though I'm pretty sure that the frog's having a good time. It's just that depending on your reading of what snippet we get from the song, he's someone who wants an audience and will just never have one. But I would say that he's pretty content with the audience that he has. There's a great moment when, skipping ahead a little bit, when the man's in his bedroom getting all the money out from under his bed and not paying any attention to the frog at all. The point of view for the audience, the camera positioning, however you want to say it, like we're facing the box right in front of us that's set up as a stage, and Michigan J. Frog is just performing for us, looking at us, and is perfectly happy to do it. Like one gets the sense that he knows that we're there as his audience, and that's all the audience he needs. He's had more people watching him sing and dance than he ever would at the rundown theater that this guy finds.
You're right. He's looking right at us. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah. He's turned out towards us often. Like his body is turned towards
he pretty much, he's very rarely turned away from us and towards the guy. It's pretty rare in this. So the man imagines the frog making him rich and famous, and he runs off with it to make his fortune. In the office of Acme Theatrical Agency, the man tells the agent about his frog and starts performing the dance. He opens the box to reveal the frog, and it doesn't dance, it doesn't sing. It's just an ordinary frog now. And the agent is very cross with the man. The man tries to manipulate the frog to make it look like it's singing and dancing, and the agent just throws them out.
Which is a very funny visual. Him holding up the arms.
Yes, it's
very good.
It's all funny. All of the poses and movements and the acting. It's such a performance piece. I mean, by this point, we have glossed over so many of my favorite facial expressions ever put to film, because I don't know how to describe them for a podcast. It's like you look at the man's face, and throughout it just stretches into whatever shape is the most expressive to express an emotion. And it's like, yeah, this is why Chuck Jones was the right guy to do the Grinch.
right. Oh, absolutely.
He'll turn 100%. A face into whatever it needs to be to express the most in the most powerful way. Pivoting here. It's weird that Michigan J. Frog and Kermit the Frog are the same age.
It is weird. I think about that.
Yeah, you've thought about this too. They feel like they're from completely different eras. Because, and I wonder how much of that is just that Michigan J. Frog is supposed to be from the 1890s.
Well, and also we don't really think of Kermit the Frog as being from the 1950s. Right,
we don't really engage with the 50s material much.
Well, because it mostly doesn't exist.
Right.
There's 15 Sam and Friends clips that exist or something like that.
Something like that. I think
Kermit's
about visual thinking often.
Sure.
But just visual thinking. And even then, I think that's maybe from a little later.
When I say we don't think about, I don't mean you and I. You and I do think about it.
Yes.
I mean the culture, like Muppet watchers, casual Muppet fans. They are not picturing Sam and Friends era Kermit. They are picturing the Muppet Show or Sesame Street.
Whereas everyone has to picture Michigan J. Frog as he was in 1955.
Right.
Even then, this feels like it feels like it should be from before television.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyhow, the agent throws them out just outside the office. The frog starts singing the Michigan Rag. The man jumps back into the office and brings out the agent. But when they come back out, the frog song is over, and he has gone back to being an ordinary frog. It's like this. I really feel like this frog is two different characters in one frog.
Sure.
And yet it still all feels like it's one intuition. This is just, he's the type of animal that instinctively, intuitively needs to do this the way that a bird just knows to build a nest. He just knows when it's the time when he has to sing and when it's the time to not sing. And so he does it, and he enjoys it and is living his full life that way. In this moment, you get some odd shots where you see the agent in the bottom corner of the screen, and I keep expecting some thought bubble to pop up to fill the rest of the image, and it does not do that. And the way that I would understand that is because the two characters are so close together when they're in the office door, the only way to do an image that would just focus in on one facial expression at a time was to sort of put the camera in this odd place and do basic, really, I say camera because I'm thinking in terms of live action films, but do this strange layout.
Right.
That's what I think that it is. It's like it's a terrible way to compose a shot in what is supposedly one of the best films, in which I would agree with the consensus. I would agree with Steven Spielberg. This is one of the best films, and it also has these horrendously composed shots with far too much headroom. But I think that Jones just really wanted to focus in on those facial expressions and did what he had to do to give you those very character-specific shots.
Sure, I can see that. Yeah.
I'm going to bring up another Michael Barrier quote now about Chuck Jones. Jones understood, probably better than any other director has, the implications of one of animation's basic principles, that there is a hierarchy of drawings, and some drawings, in Jones' case, the poses he put into his character layouts, are more important than others. Strong animation poses, like strong poses in painting and sculpture, convey a sense of both dynamism and response. They define a moment of equilibrium. Jones's drawings in the late 40s did more than define moments of physical equilibrium, though. They defined moments of emotional equilibrium when a character's feelings came into focus. He writes so much more about this that I would love to include. I love the way that he writes about this. But it did help me, even though that's more about the late 40s than this cartoon from the mid 50s, it does help me focus in on what it is about Jones that I respond to, which is, again, just... he wrapped everything around some very strong drawings that anchor everything else, and it works. He was right to do it, even if it meant that everything else was kind of sacrificed at the altar of it, if that makes sense.
It does. We talked about Friz Freleng earlier, but
yes,
one of the things that I think is interesting about this and What's Opera Doc, both, in terms of the differences or similarities between Jones and Freleng, is that that's when, like, these two are the two I think of as Jones being like, I got to do music cartoons.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, to me, that's like much more Freleng's thing, right? He has so many cartoons which are specifically scored to music. Three Little Bops, Rhapsody Rabbit, Back Alley Uproar, Yankee Doodle Daffy.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You know?
Wow.
Even though your heart is breaking, laugh, cloud.
I keep
laugh,
needing to rewatch that one. It's been ages.
Yankee
but
Doodle
again,
Daffy.
that's a public domain
actually...
cartoon, so I saw it a bunch.
Sure. I cannot tell you how often my son Miles, because that's Yankee Doodle Daffy might be his favorite cartoon. I cannot tell you how often he says, "So won't you go and beat me, Daddy, to the nearest bar?" Yeah, like Daffy in that cartoon. He does it all the time.
Good.
He's 6. But so to me, Friz Freleng was like traditionally the music cartoon guy at Warner Brothers. And I mean, obviously all the cartoons have music, but I mean the like characters are singing. The music is, the gags are timed to music.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. All right.
And Jones started that. He does. I don't think Jones is really doing that kind of thing until here. And then 2 years later, What's Opera Doc? You know?
Long-haired hair is a few years before this.
That's true. And long-haired hair is a lot like Rhapsody Rabbit.
I mean, in its way. Rhapsody Rabbit is a little bit more like another cartoon I can think of, but that will be dealt with in another episode. So then the man and his frog get kicked out of the talent agency. He sees a rundown theater across the street and realizes he can stage his frog's performance there. He goes home and finds all of his savings to invest in his new venture. At the theater, the man has put up signs outside to announce his frog. He's fixed up the inside, and the frog is dancing on a high wire. The frog just keeps getting more and more talented as it goes on.
And the signs, can we focus on the signs for a second? Let me fast. I've had the cartoon running on a loop the whole time we've been recording. Let's see here.
Good.
Here's what we got. Singing frog, here. It sings, dances, frantic. It's wonderful. Tonight, now, the wonder of the world. It acts human. That's the text on the signs.
You know what's so impressive about this cartoon?
What?
The fact that it works at all at making us believe, with very little context, with very little explaining up front, that means anything in a cartoon. Like, most cartoon characters can talk.
Right.
Like, I mean, animal ones.
Right, like, Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Porky Pig.
Right. Like, it should not be at all remarkable in a Warner Brothers cartoon that an animal can sing. They all do it in this world. But what's interesting about this whole, I don't know whether to call it a genre or a format. Like, if animation is the medium, then what do you call the 1 to 2 reel format for animation from this period? I don't know. But in each installment, they can renegotiate with the audience your sense of what is believable in the world of this particular cartoon, so that when everyone starts reacting as though someone is being completely ridiculous and it has no sense of reality at all, you just kind of buy it. You just believe it. Like, you just suddenly accept, like, oh, we're at this level of reality in this cartoon. You just, when they do it right, you just get on the specific film's level of anthropomorphizing. And sometimes sometimes it's different levels of anthropomorphizing for different characters in the same cartoon. And
sure, like Bugs. We're talking about like Mickey Mouse and Pluto, right? Like,
the Goofy Pluto.
Goofy and Pluto, but I mean like Mickey's a human man.
Yes,
and Pluto is his normal sized dog.
Yes,
but Mickey's a mouse.
Like the reason why that's fine is because of all of the logic of cartoons. Through those, around those, like it all tells you how to interpret each character to accept it on its own terms. And this one gets a few seconds to establish the very unusual terms of this frog and then turn them upside down to something that should make it more typical of one of these characters and still have us all react as though it has just completely broken with its own reality.
Right. Well, and I think what you bring to mind is another example from a half century later, where in Up, and I consider Pete Docter to be a genius. I don't know how I feel about Pete Docter. I love him. I love his films.
Sometimes.
Okay. Yeah,
I've never been an Up guy, but please, by all means, go on.
Okay. Well, in Disney pictures, from up to and including that time, animals talk all the time. They are voiced by the likes of Nathan Lane and Eddie Murphy and Rosie O'Donnell, right? And it's just like a thing. They talk to people and it's whatever. Pixar, that did not happen, right?
Correct.
There are no talking animals in Pixar for 14 years.
A Bug's Life. But...
like two humans, talking to humans.
Oh, yes.
Interacting with humans. Unlike, I guess Timon and Pumbaa don't interact with humans, but like Mushu does and Turk and all those other ones I said.
Okay.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're right.
But then Up has a moment where Carl Fredricksen hears Doug speaking, and this has to be the most unusual thing he's ever heard.
Right.
He is thrown for a loop because a talking dog cannot exist.
Right.
And we, the audience of this animated film, have to agree with him. And that's a hard thing to do in an animated film for children. You know?
But I think what's nifty is that movie has a lot of time to establish its reality before it breaks it. This cartoon only needs a few seconds.
Yeah.
And audiences have been
I'm not saying it's
it
exactly the same thing.
Right. No, but I think that you have made a very good point there. That's an impressive thing for Pete Docter to do in Up, and it's only an even more impressive thing for Chuck Jones to do here.
To do here with minimal time. Yeah, I agree.
The theater here is beautiful, by the way. Love these designs. This is very much... I want to go live in this theater.
Sure, yeah.
If I could walk into the backgrounds of Chuck Jones cartoons and go live there, I would.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's my favorite art style. So yeah, as we said, he's fixed the signs up outside. The frog is dancing on a high wire. He opens the door to let the people in, and nobody's there to come in. He puts up a sign that says free admission, and still nobody comes in. He puts up a sign that says free beer, and a huge crowd stampedes in. Very fun. Funny every time. Very good.
Yes, it's such a good joke.
The man pulls the rope for the curtain, and it snaps, because this was a rundown theater. He runs up several flights of stairs and leaps for the rope, like just the top part of the rope. Gracefully rides it down to the floor, raising the curtain on, once again, an ordinary frog. The crowd boos and throws pumpkins at him.
Right, well, but the physical, the bit of business with running up to get the rope and then jumping for the rope. You talked about Chuck Jones being the right guy to direct The Grinch. That feels like a lot of the physical comedy in The Grinch, where he's like, trying to grab the sleigh when it's rolling down the hill and things like that. Like, that feels very similar to me. To the like...
And in both cases, it shows how the character is just in way too deep in their own fixation.
Yeah, for sure.
It's someone who is now very egotistically attached to their project that they think is the most important thing in the world, and they are willing to subject themselves to an absurd amount of danger and risk in order to just see their plans through to the end.
Yeah.
At this point, we have a presumably homeless man.
Right.
That's where a construction worker is now, huddles up on a bench in a snow-covered park as his frog sings opera. A cop hears the singing and comes by, and the man blames it on the frog. The man is then locked away in a psych hospital, and the frog just keeps singing.
The frog just stays right by his side.
So I can't pronounce the name of Figaro's famous aria from The Barber of Seville that's being sung here, but it's another one of Chuck Jones doing opera stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the cyclical nature of this story reminds me of Wagner's Ring Cycle, despite the fact that I know next to nothing about Wagner's Ring Cycle. But the idea of just unearthing this powerful force of fate from the bottom of something, and then the fact that it has to just end up in the end right back where it started, and it has brought nothing but ruin, and will continue to bring ruin to whoever touches it if it's ever unearthed again. It's kind of this perfectly operatic thing in a cartoon that is mostly not opera.
Right.
Now, freed from the hospital, we don't really see how, but more miserable and disheveled than anyone has ever looked. Where should he find himself but a construction site? Finally, the man does to the frog what Chuck Jones wanted to do to Bob Clampett, puts him in a little box and leaves him behind for good. 1 century later, in a technologically... Please, go ahead.
Do we want to mention that the building is named the Tregoweth Brown Building after sound effects editor Treg Brown?
We do. Anthony, could you do me a favor and mention that?
So the sound effects editor on most of the classic Looney Tunes, it was named Treg Brown, and the building is called the Tregoweth Brown Building. That's all.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
1 century later, in a technologically advanced future, the new building is an old building and it's being torn down. A worker is zapping away the foundation and encounters the frog. Once again singing Hello My Baby. Seeing dollar signs, he runs off with the frog, starting the cycle over again. And what's the moral of the cartoon, Anthony?
If you come across a something that seems unbelievable, and when you try to tell people about it, they don't believe you, stop telling them.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's odd. If this were a 1930s cartoon, I think you'd have to read it as a morality play about greed being bad, because he like sees, he finds the frog, he sees dollar signs, he's imagining himself as rich and famous, and this is just what happens if you follow greed and ego. It always goes badly for you. That's how I would have to interpret it if it was supposed to be some sort of old Disney thing,
Sure.
because of how those are so moralizing. This has greed and ego driving it to a point, but not much. Like, he believes he can get rich because he has in fact discovered something wondrous, and he's not really trying to exploit the labor of someone who doesn't want to work. Like, it sure seems like this frog is going to sing anyway and wants to, and he might as well have some success from it. So I'm not sure I really care about that aspect of it. And as I try to think about how much is it just about punishing people for wanting to be believed when they have seen something that most people wouldn't believe, how much is the cartoon just shut up? Like, I mean, it becomes a pretty cynical, almost nasty thing. Chuck Jones is quoted as saying, and this is in Barrier's commentary, where he's got a bit of an interview with Chuck Jones. Chuck said, "I really felt sorry for both the frog and the man, and it really was an exemplification of frustrations. It's very, very punishing to this man, as though he did something wrong, but I think it's just an expression of the frustration that comes with life, with the way that..." Anthony, it's 10:35 at night. I think I'm out of things to say about One Froggy Evening. Here's something that Tom Kenny said about One Froggy Evening. voice actor Tom Kenny. There's something so existentially heartbreaking and sad about it, but it's not overwrought and it's not corny or cheap. It's really deep. I didn't even know why it was making me so sad as a kid. Now in adulthood, I know exactly why.
There you go.
I don't have a quote from him saying exactly why. I don't know what he found in adulthood, but yeah, this is a sad cartoon. We, right out of the gate, are talking about one of the saddest cartoons I've ever seen. I think that was my reaction as a kid was, no, he doesn't deserve this. Why is he... and it's just, a psych hospital is such a bleak place to take it as the ultimate end.
I think the fact... Well, I think if it was the end, it would be bleaker. But the fact that we fade to black and then we see him just like out on the street again. You know?
Right,
like,
that's true.
He doesn't end... His story doesn't end in the psych hospital.
You're right, but it does end with him presumably still being homeless, having nothing. Now, like, he's just got his coat and it's all torn to pieces, and he has gone through the experience of being, of being incarcerated.
Right.
Which is something that way too many of these cartoons think they can play off as a joke. Just
sure.
For me, that's one of the goals of this podcast is to sort of wrestle with the understanding of mental health from this time period and how much or how little things have improved since then.
Sure.
Because it's still the case that it's just kind of assumed by our institutions that if someone is not well and you trap them in a hospital, then they will get better, despite the data showing that is very much not what happens. And under certain circumstances, the United Nations considers that a form of torture that we're not supposed to be doing to people, and we keep doing it for people who are, like, suicidal. And so for me, when I watch this very fun Warner Brothers cartoon, that's where my mind goes.
Sure.
Which is why when I remembered that this is a significant piece of the cartoon, I was like, I can't believe that we're doing this up front. But that is the kind of stuff that this medium plays with. It's not afraid to go to extremes to make things terribly depressing for the sake of what is overall, I think, a really funny cartoon.
Well, I think the joke of that scene, right? Even like at the time, in context, the joke is that is horribly bleak. But look at that frog. He's standing in the window. He's still singing. He never stops. Like,
yes, and it's the look on the man's face. If the man looked sadder in that moment, then I think it would read differently. The man just looks like an annoyed parent who can't get his child to stop singing.
Very much so, yes.
And I think that's what makes this cartoon, at the very least, functional. But of course, it's more than that, right? Like, this cartoon is ranked at number 5 in the 50 Greatest Cartoons book that we've been talking about. A ranking assembled from ballots cast by animators and historians and critics totaling 1,000 people, all edited together into a lovely coffee table book by Jerry Beck. The book includes an assessment of the cartoon from film critic Jamie Bernard, who wrote that One Froggy Evening paints a familiar scenario of the dreamer who, unable to share the brilliance of his dreams, is gradually destroyed by them.
Yeah,
that's also an interpretation and is also devastating. Like, when I read that, I don't know if I agree with that as a reading of this cartoon. I'm not sure he's a dreamer. I think he's just a guy. But nevertheless, reading that and looking at the cartoon in that way was like a punch in the stomach.
But we do see his dreams as soon as he sees the frog. We see his fantasy.
That's true. Well, you see, here's the thing. He just has dreams of a singing, dancing frog making him rich and famous. But as we would later learn from the Muppet movie, the trick is to want millions of people happy, because that's the kind of dream worth whatever.
It gets better the more people you share it with. It gets better
the more people you share it with. And so the lesson of One Froggy Evening is to watch the Muppet movie. Man, this whole time you should have been on a podcast that studies the Muppet movie. You should do that.
I should have done it.
You should have done that.
Oh, 2017. What a time when we covered that movie on our podcast.
I found an old episode of a podcast I recorded in which I ended up revisiting the Muppet movie and reviewing it on mic and I said this openly, because I was following your podcast at the time. I had forgotten that I was following it that early, but I've been a fan of you talking about media for such a long time because you can contextualize so much of the stuff that I love.
Well, thank you. I've been a fan of yours ever since I knew you existed. which was
a few
Bad
minutes
Henson-
ago.
Bad Henson Bio, I think. That's
probably
4
right.
or 5 years ago now, right? Like
At most 4 years ago. Maybe it was, oh gosh. Yeah, like 3.5 years ago. You're right. Anyway,
okay.
thanks for being here, Anthony.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a thrill. I love it. What a blast. I think the thing is you and I could both do this all night. So thank you.
Right,
for having
it's true. And now I am, like, I just keep talking and laughing as my body is getting weaker and weaker. I'm so tired, but it's been good. It's been really good. Folks, it's about time for us to say so long. But before we do, we'll tell you where to find us. Anthony, where should the people go to find you, your work, or anything at all you'd like to plug?
You can find a lot of my work at toughpigs.com, along with JD's work. We will have a new season of Movin Right Along where we cover Muppets from space at some point in the near future.
And you know, you're right what you said before. People who want to hear about the 5th greatest animated short film ever made will also definitely be equally interested in studying Muppets from space 2 minutes at a time.
Oh, man, it's going to be a brick house of analysis, and I don't know.
Anthony, come on now. Celebrate good times. Come on.
Come on. And then you can follow me on Blue Sky at Durwood Clapper. DURWOOD Clapper, like the light switch.
Good. You can probably find me somewhere on social media, maybe Blue Sky, at JD11PC. You can read my writing about Muppets at toughpigs.com, where you'll also find my podcast, The Great Muppet Fandom Panel. Please be sure to give us a review so more people can find us. And remember, the next time you try to get rich with a singing, dancing frog, stick to shorts.